Okay, here we go. We are live right now. Hey, John Doe. Hey, Cody Cooper. No, I didn't see Resident Evil 9. Greetings from the mountains in Patagonia. Oh, hey, Netis Ghost. Do I watch Moist Critical? I've seen some of his videos before. Hey, everyone. Do I know a studio called Radical Entertainment? Yes. Aren't those the people who made the Scarface game? Patagonia? I've never heard of it before. Is it a real place or is it from a game? Oh yeah, we'll play Sindako Chronicles this year. Hey Ferris, how are you? So, does that mean that Scarface could get a remake? Is Robbie's live the Polsce? I don't... wait. Will I live stream in Poland? Oh, that's the first time I've heard of it, Netis Ghost. No, the Scarface game didn't get a remake. Perfumes? What? What are you talking about, R2-D2? Do you think Nico was a hypocrite when it came to Darko? Yes, in a way. I mean, Nico killed a lot of people. Is it made up of the same people? The same people from the old studio? Czy zrobisz odcinek, co robiłeś w Polsce I co zobaczyłeś? You're asking me if I would make a video on what I would see in Poland? Yeah, well, here's the thing is, I will visit Poland. Again, I've already planning on it. It's gonna be the first time that I've been in the country in 16 years. But when I do go, it's not this year, it's next year, next November. So November 2027 is when I go. I was actually planning on going this year, so this November I was actually planning on going. But GTA 6 ruined that. So I was planning on going for the Independence Day parade because I really wanted to see the Independence Day because Independence Day is such a big holiday in Poland. It's in November, and GTA 6 comes out right around that time, so I can't go because I'll have to cover GTA 6. So that kind of sucks. If GTA 6 would have come out this year in May, I would have been able to do it, but I'll go November 2027 next year. What's a big mistake for Saul Goodman in Better Call Saul? His dishonesty, trying to constantly weasel his way out of every situation. Are you a Polish American? Yes. Can I explain the magnates in the Commonwealth? I know that they were one cut above the Slansha. Well, the Slansha, they were the aristocracy in Poland. They were the aristocratic class. The magnates, I don't know if I know too much about them. I guess I don't really. R2D2. Well, no, it's New Radical Entertainment. Okay. And they own the rights to Scarface, right? This New Radical Entertainment studio, they own the rights to that, right? Scarface is theirs. So if they wanted to, they could make it, right?
Hey, I'll find you, so I will.
Well, Bork, I have a plan for my next channel update video. I'm gonna be releasing it this, next week. It's not gonna be around that. I already know the topic I'm gonna be talking about. I don't want to spoil it too much, but has Germany and Russia always been enemies for decades? Hey, AC. Well, Germany was the what was it? There was the Holy Roman Empire. There was Prussia. There was at times when Prussia had good relations with Russia, which Prussia was the largest German state. There was other times when they had wars, but historically, Germany and Russia have had more problems than good things. What motivates you to play Red Dead and GTA for so long? Well, I like what was it? I like these games still. Red Dead Online I know doesn't get any content, but I'm still, I guess I'm probably one of the few remaining Red Dead YouTubers left out there. There's barely anyone that covers Red Dead Online anymore. I know there's people that do it still. Like I know my friend PvP Cats, he's the biggest Red Dead channel out there, but there's barely anyone that's still left that that covers Red Dead. But I'm not, I know the game's not getting any more content, but I still like playing it. I still have fun playing it. Oh, they see her as a scumbag, Gunner. What in YULQC pissed you off, Pat? I missed it. Wait, what? What are you talking about, Bork? If Pegarino did listen to Nico about Dimitri, would he still be alive? Yes. Happy 4 months. Me and my girlfriend are planning to go to Bosnia soon. It's going to be my first time in Europe. Love the streams, Pat. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Ferris. Thank you. Thank you for being a member for 4 months. Am I more excited for GTA 6's story or the online? Honestly, the thing that I'm the most excited for with GTA 6, it's not the story. It's not the online, it's the map. The map. I think most people can agree with me. I think we're most excited for the map. I think because it's been, 13 years since we've gotten a GTA game, and that's the thing is, whenever I would play a GTA game for the first time, the first thing I would always do is open up the pause menu and just look at the map. That's the first thing I would do in every GTA game, even when I played the PS2 games when they first came out. That's what I would always do. Thank you for being a member for 4 months also, Minion Dave. What video game studio do I hate the most? the thing about Rockstar is with Rockstar I have a love-hate relationship where I like the games they make, but I also get pissed off at the crap they do. But if I had to answer the studio that I probably hate the most, that I dislike the most, Volition, the Saints Row developers, probably Volition, yeah, I'd say probably Volition, because of the BS that happened with Volition. You know, the thing is with Volition is calling your fans terrorists for not liking the direction that the Saints Row reboot went in, insulting your fans, doubling down on that stuff, ruining a beloved game series. Because look, GTA 5 and GTA Online has problems. It does. But it's not a terrible game. Still a fairly good game. Where Saints Row, on the other hand, was a terrible game. Saints Row 2 was an amazing game. How can you go from something like Saints Row 2 to the Saints Row reboot? Like, how does that even happen? Here's the thing is, guys, I don't think there is an answer to the Mount Chiliad mystery. I don't think there is. I don't think there's any kind of answer to it. Because if there was an answer, somebody would have solved it by now. I don't think there is an answer to it. I heard in Singapore, criminals are subject to caning if they're caught, including scammers. I know in Singapore, the punishment for dealing drugs is the death penalty. I know that. So, Singapore, I know, takes crime very seriously. Thank you, Silver Fox Line, for the super chat. Well, the reason that the Commonwealth joined that is because of what Sweden did to Poland in the deluge. You have to remember that. The amount of crimes that Sweden had committed against Poland. The thing is, I will tell you this, the downfall of Saints Row is the political correctness, and I really hope we don't see political correctness in GTA 6. Like, I really, really hope we don't see political correctness in that game. I really don't want to see it, because, look, think about this. In Saints Row 2, it was called Freckle Bitches. That was the name of the restaurant, and it was the restaurant, the fast food restaurant. It was a parody off of Burger King or McDonald's, and then in Saints Row the reboot, you had FBs. They changed it from Freckle Bitches to FBs. And they even changed the name of the mechanic shop too. They changed that too. They changed the word homie. Have you noticed how homie is not used at all in the Saints Row reboot? No, there's no homies. And whenever you would call for backup, you would call your homies. But now it's just contacts, your contact. You would call your contact for backup, which is just so stupid. And like, Can somebody, like, can somebody here in the comments, like, explain to me, how is homie an offensive word? Like, how? How is that a bad word? Can somebody please explain that to me? Because I fail to see how homie is, like, a bad word. Because, like, homie is basically just hood slang for good friend. It just means friend. That's all it is, good friend. That's what homie means. And so, like, I don't understand how the word homie can be considered offensive, but apparently the Saints Row developers thought that the word homie was offensive, and they took the word out. That's probably the stupidest thing ever, taking the word homie out of the game because you think it's offensive. I don't know how homie can be considered offensive, but that's...
If you folks know any songs, keep them to your damn self. Here, don't be a stranger.
Did you hear the company behind Scarface, The World Is Yours, and Simpsons Hit and Run have returned, but under a new company name, now being Radical Games? Yep, I heard about that. Do they own the rights to Scarface, though, Golden Stripes? What do I think of rehabilitation in prisons in Europe and the Far East? Well, the Far East, I don't know anything about that. When you say the Far East, what are you talking about? Are you talking about, like, the Russian Far East? When people say Far East, they mean, like, Russia, typically, when they say that. Like, they're saying parts of Siberia. But I can't comment on the Far East, but I can comment on Europe. Here's what I will tell you. Specifically, when people think of rehabilitation, they think of Norway the most, and I'll explain that in a moment here. About neo-Nazism, out of all the countries, why Russia? The reason that Russia does have the largest neo-Nazi population out of any country in Europe, that is true. The reason that there's such high amount of neo-Nazis in Russia is probably because of the political extremism that has gone on in Russia. Because when Russia's economy collapsed in the 1990s, you had like all of these violent extremist gangs that were basically popping up around the country, and that's where a lot of that nonsense came from. The thing is, you will see extremists like communists and neo-Nazis. These guys, they get more support when countries are in very bad economic times. So when countries historically have been in bad economic times, people turn to extremists. They turn to the far left. They turn to the far right. You will have people like that usually come to power when there's really bad economic times. That's usually when those people tend to come to power. And as for Russia, Russia has just gone through like a period of instability, and there was massive poverty in the 1990s. Like their economy completely collapsed, which is probably one of the reasons that the neo-Nazi population has been so high in Russia. But the other thing I'll say about it is that the any Eastern European neo-Nazis, like when it comes to the Ukrainian neo-Nazis and Russian neo-Nazis, Belarusian neo-Nazis, these guys are the stupidest people on the planet. Because the Nazis believed that Slavic people were an inferior people, and they literally planned on genociding the entire Slavic population and then deporting the rest of them past the Urals. That's what Lebensraum was. It was Hitler's plan. He was going to massacre the entire Slavic population and just, enslave them. And the fact that, like, you can have idiots out there that are, like, Slavics, Eastern Europeans, and they support, like, neo-Nazism when it's an ideology that was literally calling for their own deaths and enslavement. So it's literally, like I said, Eastern European neo-Nazis are probably the stupidest people on the planet. That's probably what I'll say about that. Let me see. Hey, Pro, you were really dominating in the Cabaret Club. Yeah, I was really good at it in Yakuza 0. Do you care if you're a meme? Not really, no. People made a ton of memes of me when I did that GTA GeoGuessr with Dark Viper. People made a bunch of memes out of that. I remember, like, there was one meme that my friend sent me, and it was like a really funny meme, and it was like a random picture of the ocean. And it was like it was just the ocean, like there was nothing there, and then it was like and then you saw a picture of me in the background, and it said The Professional. There's a GTA mission there. that's I thought that one was kind of funny. The GTA 6 map is inevitably going to get leaked before the game launches. All GTA maps were eventually leaked before launch, even Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah, it's going to happen. And that's I remember, you guys remember a couple weeks ago, all the YouTubers were just constantly saying that GTA 6 physical is going to get delayed. Like, they were all saying that. And I was like one of the few people that said it's not going to get delayed. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not, because like it's going to get leaked. Even if it's digital, it's still going to get leaked. It's gonna happen, and a lot of people were arguing with me, telling me no, it's not true. But then it turns out I was right. Like Rockstar, said exactly what I said, that the physical is not gonna get, delayed. I called that one. Anyways, let me answer the guy's question about Norway, because there was a guy who was asking me about the prisons in Europe and the rehabilitation programs. Look, here's what I will say, and this is no offense to my Norwegian viewers, but the prison system in Norway does not work. It is not effective. And what people don't understand about the prisons in Norway, like the prisons in Norway are basically like hotels, and what Norwegians do a lot of times is Norwegians say, oh, our prison system is the best in the world because we have one of the lowest crime rates in the world, and so they will say that, and they will say, oh, that means that our prisons work. But here's the reality of it. And I also wrote about this in college when I was studying criminal justice, because that's what I went to college for, was criminal justice. When I studied Norway's prison system. And here's what I will tell you about Norway's prison system. Norway would still have the same crime rate, the really low crime rate. They would have that regardless if they had American prisons. So if Norway adopted American-style prisons tomorrow, they would still have the exact same crime rate. There would be no difference. So the reason that Norway's crime rate is so low, it has nothing to do with their rehabilitating prisons. They think that it's all because of their rehabilitating prisons. The reason that Norway's violent crime rate is so low is because Norway does not have a large population. It does not have very large urban centers like New York, for example, and Chicago and Los Angeles, places that are very large urban centers, Hong Kong, Tokyo, New York, Moscow, anywhere in the world that has like a very large city. Large cities typically are where a lot of the crime happens. So that's just what it happens. When you have a large urban center, you're just going to have more crime. It's going to happen. Gangs are going to pop up. So Norway, while they do have cities like Oslo, they don't really have large urban centers. Like I think the population of Norway is like, 6-7 million? Correct me if I'm wrong. So it doesn't have a very high population. So that's one of the reasons that their crime is so low. The other reason, and this is the number one reason of why Norway's crime rate is so low, is because they have some of the highest living standards in the world. The average Norwegian, I think, makes more money than the average American. So they have some of the highest living standards in the world. Like people in Norway are not really worried about their finances, for example. And because, people, have a very high standard of living, there's less crime. Countries that are rich, where people have a very high standard of living, have the least amount of crime. The reason for that is because people don't turn to crime because they're already making plenty of money. So wherever you have poverty, especially poorer countries, you're going to have an increase in the amount of crime. So the reason that Norway's, violent crime is so low is because that's some of the highest living standards in the world, and it does not have these large urban centers. The other thing about Norway is not surrounded by a lot of, dangerous neighbors. I will say that also. So like Norway, the only country that I would say that Norway is kind of dangerous to is Russia, but Russia has like this tiny border with Norway that's like all the way at the very top of it, and like, that's like the chances of like, something happening there is like very slim to none. Like for example, if you look at America's border, America borders with Mexico, and Mexico is like a very dangerous country. It's a country that has like a lot of corruption, and drugs are constantly pouring across the border into America. So you have like cartels that will constantly smuggle like tons of like cocaine, meth, heroin, fentanyl, all of this other poison into America, constantly increasing the crime rate. So like Norway does not have to deal with the cartels. They don't have to deal with something like that. So that's what imagine if Norway, for example, bordered Mexico. Just imagine that if Norway bordered Mexico. If they bordered Mexico, just imagine the amount of crime that Norway would have to deal with. The cartels coming into Norway, causing chaos, selling drugs in their country. So that's what people don't understand, is that there's every country is different, and like when Norway basically says, our crime rate is so low because of our prisons, it's not because of your prisons, it's because your country has a high living standard. Your country is does not have a very dangerous border. It's a very safe country. So that's what I'll say about that. So, like, if you look at America, for example, Norway does not even have half the gangs that America has. Like, America has outlaw bikers. It has the Italian Mafia, the Russian Mafia, the Triads, the Yakuza, the cartels, street gangsters, Crips, Bloods, MS-13. I could just keep going on and on and on. There's just so many gangs and mafias and organized crime that exist in America, and Norway does not even have half of these gangs. So that's basically what I'll say to you, is if America adopted Norway's prison system tomorrow, our crime rate would not change at all. In fact, our crime rate might not even go up, because prisoners might realize they're not getting punished anymore. So Lily, that's what I'll say about it, is if you look at a country like El Salvador, for example, El Salvador is the complete opposite of Norway, where El Salvador is extremely strict. Where Norway is very rehabilitation, El Salvador is all the way max punishment, no rehabilitation whatsoever. And El Salvador has some of the, the lowest crime rate in the entire Western world right now because of that. It went from the most violent country to one of the safest countries in the world. So that's what I will say about the guy that was asking me about what do I think about the rehabilitation stuff in Europe. That's what I will tell you about that. Is that there's a lot of factors people are not putting into it, and people say it's because of Norway's prison system, but it's not. Hey Patrick, I've work tomorrow, so unfortunately won't be able to watch your stream. I'll see you around like a donut. Oh, thank you, Isaiah. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks, man. But and happy birthday to General. Happy birthday to my friend General. We're playing right now. It's his birthday today. Everyone wish him a happy birthday. What was I gonna say? The other thing about this? Oh yeah. So look, about Norway is. You had this psycho in Norway, and let me just look up how many people this guy killed, because this guy was like a really bad person. But this is like the worst criminal in Norwegian history. Let me see here. Okay, so there's this guy in Norway called Anders Breivik, and he is the most dangerous prisoner in Norway right now. And Anders Breivik killed 77 people. 77 people. That's how many people this one guy killed. Yeah, he was a terrorist. Anders Breivik was a terrorist. But about Anders Breivik, here's the backstory behind Anders Breivik. In 2011, what he did was he detonated a bomb in Oslo. He killed 7 people with the bomb. And then what he did was he went to an island in Norway where kids were camping. It was like a school field trip. I don't remember exactly why the kids were there. It was like some kind of camping trip. I think it was a school trip. And what he did was he dressed up as a cop. He was dressed up as a police officer. And what he did was he just massacred all the kids on the island, just shooting everybody, killing everybody. And if you're wondering, why did he do this stuff? It's because Anders Breivik was a neo-Nazi. He was a crazy, extremist. He's a terrorist. He was a extremely disturbed person. He was a psycho. It was his political ideology. He was a terrorist. That's what terrorism is. Terrorism is when you commit crimes for political ideology. So this was like a psychotic neo-Nazi that basically killed like 77 people in Norway. Now, so he detonated a bomb, then he dressed up as a cop and shot a bunch of people. 77 people killed. And Norway was never, it was a political camp for young people. Okay, so it was some kind of island. I just know that it was like a bunch of kids were there, and he started killing them. Now, the thing about this guy, about Anders Breivik, is he was arrested. And when he was arrested, this guy has no remorse whatsoever. Like, no remorse. Like, if you've seen this guy in the courtroom, he was smiling. He was laughing in the courtroom. Like, all the people that he killed, he has no remorse. Like, this guy's, like, evil. Like, complete evil. Pure evil is what this guy is. And what Norway did was, Norway never dealt with a case like that before. They never had, like, a case on that scale of somebody doing something like that. So for Norway, like, they were just completely blown away by that. They never had to deal with something like that. Norway, what they did was, they gave the guy 15 years to life. And so what that basically means is that after 15 years, the guy can be paroled. It doesn't mean he's going to get out, but he could after 15 years technically. The parole board says that he's rehabilitated. He could get out. Now, what this guy did was he had a PlayStation 2 in his prison cell. And he sued the Norwegian government because he wanted a PS3, and he actually won the case, and he got the PS3 in his case. He lives in, like, a hotel prison. He has a bed, his own personal shower, a library, a tennis court, a swimming pool, a bunch of stuff. And like, us in America, we look at this stuff, and we think that this guy killed 77 people, and he's, like, he's in this type of prison. Because Norway does not have, like, that maximum security prison for, like, the most dangerous people. They don't really have that. So, what I would ask the Norwegian government is I would ask them, what is the point of trying to rehabilitate somebody like this? Like, this guy killed 77 people. Like, how is this guy of any use to society whatsoever? How is this guy gonna help contribute to society whatsoever? How is this guy? This guy is evil, pure evil. Like, and here's the thing about this, is if they let this guy out, 100% he will do that again. There is no question in my mind. He will 100% do that again. He will start massacring people if he is let out. There's no question in my mind he will do that. This guy is dangerous. He can never be let out of prison. But if the Norwegian government is so stupid and they let this guy out of prison, because the 15 years is about to pass. It's about to be 15 years since that whole thing happened. So, that happened in 2011. This is 2026, so that 15-year time is coming up. If they release this guy from prison, I'm telling you, this guy's going to do it again. There is no question in my mind he will do it again. He's dangerous. That guy deserves to be executed. He should not be, living the life in prison. He should be killed. And so that's the problem with these rehabilitation prisons in Norway, is they want to rehabilitate everyone, even a psycho that killed 77 people. They even want to try to rehabilitate somebody like that. And the way that I see it, when it comes to rehabilitation, I'm not against rehabilitation. I'm not saying that that rehabilitation is wrong, but people should only be rehabilitated who deserve it. Only people who deserve it. So, like, if there are people out there who haven't killed somebody, committed some crimes, maybe sold drugs or robbed somebody, as long as they didn't kill anybody, yeah, they could be rehabilitated and they could, serve their time in prison and they could, come out and they could become a productive citizen. But to let somebody out of prison who basically killed 77 people and think that this guy's possibly rehabilitated, it is absolute insanity. And that guy should never be let out of prison. The way that I see it, if you kill somebody, you don't deserve rehabilitation. You don't. You should suffer for the rest of your life. If you kill somebody, you should suffer. You should not be. You don't deserve rehabilitation. Rehabilitation should only be for people who deserve it. Context just joined. Oh, we were talking about the Anders Breivik case that happened in Norway. Yes, I do, Aaron. Your worst hotel review reminded me of a terrible apartment I stayed in for 2 months. I had to break my lease and move somewhere better. Oh. What was happening at that apartment, Real Spree? So, thank you for sponsoring my channel for a year and a half. talking talking about extremists and terrorists, what ideology do I think is the most evil? That's really difficult to answer that one. It's so difficult. You're not someone to wish death upon another. Well, I'm telling you, Anders Breivik is a psychopath. That guy killed 77 people. He has no remorse for it whatsoever. He's an evil person. And, you know, saying that I think the guy deserves a death penalty, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The guy's a murderer. You know, he's a, you know, a psycho. He massacred a bunch of kids. So, you know, that guy, you know, I don't think that guy deserves to spend time in prison. I think he should be executed for what he did. But about the extremists is I don't know if there's like a single ideology that is like the most evil in history, because there have just been so many ideologies that have just caused so much harm. Like monarchism, for example, has killed, you know, how many people throughout history. You know, millions of people have died because of monarchism. And then you also, at the same time, you also have what is it, fascism, you have communism, you also have theocracy. Theocracy has killed a lot of people throughout history. So there's a lot of different ideologies that have just murdered people. But I would say about it is, if you look at it from a historical perspective, right? Like communism and fascism, right? Communism and fascism. These two ideologies are still fairly modern ideologies. They're still fairly new ideologies, because fascism was started in the 1920s by Benito Mussolini. And then you had, you know, communism that was started by Karl Marx. That was, what, in the 1870s? But the first communist country was the Soviet Union, which was in 1922. You also had the Paris Commune in 1870, which I guess was like the closest to that. But it didn't succeed as a country. The Soviet Union was the only one that lasted. But anyways, the point that I'm getting at is that both communism and fascism are around 100 years old. Both of the ideologies around 100 years old. And even though these ideologies are both around 100 years old, communism and fascism combined together, both of these ideologies have killed the most amount of people in history. You know, if you just combine those two together. Like, just think about all the people that have died because of fascism and all the people that died because of communism. You put those two ideologies together, is that they are, you know, those two ideologies have literally killed the most amount of people in history. You know, if you combine, you know, the crimes of fascist countries like, you know, Germany, you know, Italy, you know, and then you combine it with like the crimes of communist countries like the Soviet Union, you know, China, North Korea, you know, Cuba, you know, all of these, you know, communist countries that have existed, you know, Cambodia, you will have around 200 million people dead. Around 200 million people, 250,000 people died with a combination of both fascism and communism. So if you're gonna say, you know, any ideology that's probably the worst one in history, it is probably, you know, both communism and fascism, probably those two, because even though they're both fairly, you know, still around 100 years old, in those 100-year time period, they have literally killed the most amount of people. Thank you, Jesus, for the super chat. Were the Nazis originally left or right on the political spectrum? Here's where it gets a bit confusing. So the Nazis were socialists. They were ultra-nationalists that were also socialists. Doesn't mean that they were left-wing, though, but they did adopt socialism also. Like, a lot of the Nazi policies are very socialist. Like, Nazi Germany, for example, was a controlled economy. It was not a capitalist economy by any means. The difference between, like, the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany is that in the Soviet Union, there was no private property. Everything was public. Everything was, you know, government-controlled. But in Nazi Germany, for example, you had private property, but private property would be there and private business would exist specifically to benefit the government. The government would take advantage of that, and it was specifically to benefit the government, the party, you know, the Nazi party, for example. That was the whole, you know, purpose of private business. It was to benefit the party and the country. So when it comes to Nazism, this is what gets you a lot of confused. Their economic policies, when it comes to their economic policies, are very socialist-like in nature. Like, Hitler had said several times how he despises capitalism, so they're not capitalist in any means. But I wouldn't call them left-wing at the same time, too, because if you look at their social policies are clearly, like, extreme far-right. So that's where it gets a bit confusing when it comes to Nazism. It is, its economics is very socialist in nature, but its social policy is extreme far-right. Let's see here. Not really, Gunner. You forgot to mention Imperial Japan as one of the fascist countries. In a way, yeah. But when we think of fascism, we usually think of, you know, European countries. But you could make the argument that Imperial Japan was a fascist country. I would agree with you on that. Sure. How would I could try that a little bit later, Shiny Knight. Nice hat. Thank you. As dumb as it sounds, what about if something like a firearm misfire occurs? Because I still think that it's murder, but at least misfires can be genuine accidents. Well, here's the thing is, if it's an accident, it's not a murder. That's probably manslaughter, depending on what the situation is. You know, here's the thing is, not every single, you know, killing is a murder. That's what people think, that all killings are murders. It's not true. What murder basically is, the definition of murder, is planning to kill somebody and then carrying it out. That is what murder is. Planning to kill somebody and then carrying it out. So there needs to be the plan, and then there needs to be the action, which is killing the person. If there is an accidental killing, that is not murder. If it's an accidental killing, it's still a killing, but it's not a murder. It would fall under a number of things. It depends on what the situation is. If for example, like, you know, there's a construction accident, right? And, like, there's, like, a construction supervisor is not, like, doing safety tests, and something happens bad at the site, and one of the construction workers dies, that could be gross negligence. That's basically what it is, gross negligence, where you're charged with the death of the person, but you're not necessarily charged with murder, you're charged with negligence, that your negligence basically caused the person's death. It's still a very serious, you know, charge, but it's not as serious as murder. And then you also have manslaughter. Manslaughter can be more in that example where you said if a gun misfires. If a gun misfires, it can be manslaughter. It depends on the situation. You know, for example, you know, if somebody is, for example, careless with their guns, right? If you are careless with your firearm, and let's just say that, for example, that, you know, somebody is cleaning their gun or something like that, and they leave their gun loaded, and then what ends up happening is, you know, their child finds the gun and pulls the trigger and accidentally kills themselves. If something like that, because that does happen, if something like that happens, that would probably be a manslaughter charge. It would not be a murder charge, because it's not like the parent planned on doing it, but their recklessness basically caused the child's death, and it was their fault. So that's that's the difference between manslaughter, murder, and gross negligence, really. What ideology side do you think Vladimir Makarov was? You know, political ideology? I would call Makarov a fascist. That's basically what I would say his ideology is. Makarov is like Russian ultranationalism, which that's what the Nazis were. They were ultranationalists. So it was, I would say Makarov ultranationalism. Makarov also supports a monarchy. He wants to be king of Russia, so he's also a monarchist in a way, but ultranationalist, you know, monarchist. That's basically how I would describe Makarov. What do you think about Mike Watson? He died in 2020 after he tried to help with Saints Row 2 on PC. Yeah, he was a great developer. It's really sad what happened to him. You know, we lost a really great developer when he passed away. Oh, the Galactic Republic was corrupt in Star Wars because a lot of planets were not getting fair representation, General. Are Ukrainians and Russians fascist? No, not as a people. You know, not collectively as a people, but but are there fascists in both Ukraine and Russia? 100%. You know, in both countries. There's neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine and Russia. 100% on that. So, you know, the entire, you know, Russian and Ukrainian population isn't like that. But are there extremists like that in those countries? Sure. My accuracy is so terrible right now. Favorite game with a political focus? Mercenaries, where it's just the anti-war element to it, or Ace Combat Zero, because Ace Combat Zero has a very strong anti-war message in it. Thank you, Ferris, for the super chat. How well do you know the Second Polish Republic? A little bit about it. I really wish you could use this rolling block without the scope. Probably my most used weapon if I could. No, Ace Combat is a really good game. When you check it out, Shiny Knight, you'll like it. Well, what they were trying to do, Gunner, is they were trying to reduce the power of the aristocracy because the aristocrats were the ones who would choose the king. There was constant maintenance delays and slow response from management. The property didn't feel safe or well cared for, and the frequent noise made it uncomfortable to live there. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Spree. So, look, here's what I will tell you guys. Here's what I will tell you guys. I'll tell you guys a secret right here. Well, it's not really a secret, but a lot of people don't know this. I'm a landlord. Also, for people wondering, I own 2 rental properties, but I treat. I'm not a slumlord. I don't, I'm not a scumbag. I have never raised rent, by the way. I've owned rentals for 4 years and I've never raised rent. But anyways, let me give you guys a little bit of a huge piece of advice. If you rent property, if you're watching this right now and you rent property, I'm gonna give you a really big piece of advice that can help you out. Now, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking specifically about my country, America. So I don't know other countries' rental laws, but I can speak for my own country, America. Now, in America, it depends on every single state. Every single state has different, rental laws. But one thing that is common across all states, usually for the most part, one thing that's common, usually across all the states. Now, my state where I live in the Midwest, my state is very pro-landlord. However, though, even though my state is very pro-landlord, this one protection still exists for tenants, and that is if the property is in disrepair. So, if something breaks in the property, in the rental property, if something breaks that is essential, that you need, like let's say for example that like your heating breaks, right? Your heating, breaks, and it's cold, for example, the winter, and you need it, or it's the opposite, it's a summer, and your air conditioning system breaks, and it's like central air, for example, in the apartment building. It's not your personal air conditioner, it's like central air. If it's central air, it's based on the landlord. It's the landlord's problem at that point. If like your heating or your water, something's wrong with the water, for example. Water's wrong, sink is like, spilling water like from the pipes. If something like that happens, what you do is never call the landlord when something like that happens. When that happens, text the landlord or email the landlord. The reason you don't want to call the landlord is, but you can call the landlord if you want, but call them after you send the text message or the email, because you want a paper trail. Because when you text somebody or you email somebody, there's a paper trail. There's proof that, hey, I told you about this problem. If you call them, the landlord can later say, oh, you never told me about this problem, and they can basically be like a slumlord to you. And that's how most landlords avoid this issue. Most people, they call the landlord, they don't text the landlord or email the landlord. If you call and text the landlord, if you text or email the landlord, there's a paper trail. And what you do is you tell the landlord, I want this fixed. This is this pipe problem, heating problem, water problem, whatever it is, electrical problem. It has to be some kind of problem that is being a massive nuisance for you, and it's on the landlord. So water problem, electrical problem, heating problem, any window breaks, stuff like that. If it's not your fault, if it just happened, it's on the landlord, and the landlord has to repair it. Now, going back to what I was saying, this piece of advice, if you tell the landlord about this problem, and the landlord still refuses to fix the issue, they won't fix it. In a lot of states, they usually give 2 weeks. So usually in a lot of states, it's around, like my state, it's around 2 weeks. So a lot of states, it's around 2 weeks. The landlord has 2 weeks to fix the issue. If the landlord does not fix the issue and they keep ignoring you, what you can do is you can actually fix the problem yourself. So you can hire somebody like a handyman or something like that, and they'll come by and they'll fix the problem. And then what you can do is you can take that amount that they use to fix that and you can deduct that from your rent and put that towards your rent. You can do that. In my own state, in my state is landlord friendly, you can do that as well. So I would highly suggest anybody who's renting, make sure you read the laws and you look into this. So make sure, like I said, every state is different. I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you from experience as a landlord, you can do that in a lot of states. A lot of people don't know that they can do that. That, you can have the problem fixed. If there's like a problem that's something breaks in your rental property and the landlord's being like a slumlord, like he's being greedy and he doesn't want to like fix the problem, he's ignoring you, what you can do is you can have the problem fixed, and then what you can do is you can deduct that from your rent. And if your landlord tries to take you to court and say like, oh no, you didn't pay me the full rent, you can then bring up those emails and you can bring up those text messages and say, hey, I told you about this weeks ago, about this, water, electrical, whatever problem it was, and you did not fix it. And so I really took the liberty to fix it myself and I deducted it from the rent. And that is, and most courts will side with you at that point. Most courts the judge will basically say, like, to the landlord, he sent you, like, all these messages, like, telling you to fix this problem. Why did you not fix this problem? So that's what I will tell you about that. Like, there was, for example, there was a, in my state, right, or in my town, for example, to become a landlord, you have to get a rental permit. And to get a rental permit, you have to take, like, a 2-hour class, which basically explains to you, like, rental laws and stuff like that. And the guy that was doing the class, he told us that for the most part, the city or the town has really not had to deal with that many landlord problems, but they said that they had this one guy who was like a slumlord, and the one guy who was a slumlord, right? This guy had owned several properties in my town here, and he wasn't even American. The guy was actually from Australia. And what ended up happening was there was like a really bad hailstorm, and when there was like a really bad hailstorm, it actually broke a bunch of windows in the house. And this Australian guy who owns this rental would not fix the problem. He would not. And so the city ended up billing him for that. So the city, went after him for stuff like that. And this is a very pro-landlord state where this happened. So, like, people think that just because it's a pro-landlord state, they think, oh, I have no protections, or, no, the government isn't going to help me. There's still certain things that, can be done in a lot of situations. So, like, that's what I'll tell you guys. You're a landlord? Yes, I'm a landlord. But, I follow the laws, and I'm not slumlord. I grew up in a rental property myself, when I was a kid, and then my parents had their own rental property. So, I'm familiar with both renting and being a landlord. I mean, I'm used to both of them. But, I'm aware of the protections that, that tenants get, and I don't tolerate that. Like, the way that I personally see it, right, is that, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a landlord. Like, you're providing a business and you're providing, housing for people. But at the same time if you're being a landlord, you have an obligation to also take care of your tenants. And you have an obligation to also, if something goes wrong, something breaks in that property, you have to get off your ass and you have to fix that problem. It doesn't mean that you have to fix it yourself, but you have to at least hire somebody to fix it. You have to at least send somebody out and fix it. You can fix it yourself if you know what you're doing, but most landlords, like, me, for example, I don't know how to fix stuff. I don't know how to fix anything, really. I'm not a tech, a guy like that. So whenever I have problems, I get a handyman, but I get on it really quick and I fix the problem. So that's what I'll say about that. So Spreezo, I don't know if you're still here, if you heard what I said. I hope you heard what I said, but just know that in the future, that if something like that happens, just go on Google and look it up. Like, can I deduct repairs from my rent in this state? Like, whatever state you guys are in, if you have like any problems with your rental property, just Google it. Say, can I deduct repairs from my rent in this state? And chances are you probably can, because most states they let you do that. And the landlord cannot, sue you for that. So I would not panic over that. Just make sure you know the law. Make sure you know the law. There's a paper trail. But there's ways to, stop greedy landlords from doing this crap and pulling this crap. Just a lot of people, they just don't know the law, unfortunately. That's why a lot of tenants get scammed by scummy landlords, because they just don't know the law. YouTube AI won't ban clickbait thumbnails. But they'll ban the whole English language. Also, will you play Golem? I don't know that game. Is it a new game? It's the first time I've heard about it. But yeah, here's the thing, Silver Fox. Here's what I'll say about that. I don't think that YouTube should delete clickbait videos, and I'm not defending clickbait or anything, but the reason that I don't think YouTube should delete clickbait is because if they delete clickbait, basically, who's going to define what's clickbait and what's not? I'd never do clickbait, don't get me wrong, but, like, it's who's going to define, who does clickbait and who doesn't. What I would suggest instead, my solution, I do have a solution to stop the clickbait. You know what my solution would be to stop the clickbait? What my solution should be is, what's the name of those things that are on Twitter? Like, what are those things called on Twitter that, like, when somebody, like, makes a post or something like that, right? Like, there will be, like, those little, like, thing at the bottom that'll basically, like, comment. It's, like, from Twitter's automatic thing, and it'll basically say whether this is true or not. Like, it'll say whether this, tweet is true or factual or not. I think it's community notes. Is it community notes? Is that what it's called? But that's what I would say is that, like, when people post some of those misleading things on Twitter, you'll have, like, that little thing that will, like, come up at the bottom, and it'll basically just say, like, oh, this is what this was about, or something like that. And I think that's what YouTube needs. I think that YouTube needs those community notes. I think that would be, I think that would be very helpful. And so, like, for example, like a channel that repeatedly, yeah, fact check in a way too, but like a channel that repeatedly like engages in clickbait. Like, if there's a channel that's constantly doing clickbait, right? What YouTube should do is that YouTube should, oh, now the body's gone in the water. What YouTube should do is they should have those community notes at the bottom of the video, like every single video. And even if they don't post clickbait videos, just have the community notes at the bottom of the video and just say, this channel has been accused of clickbait numerous times. Like, you know, the viewers of this channel are very frustrated or something like that. Like, this channel has had several like clickbait accusations against it for misleading thumbnails and stuff like that. And if you put those community notes at the bottom of each video and the YouTuber can't remove that, I guarantee you that would cause like clickbait views to go down, because a lot of people would see that message pop up right away and they would just click off the video and they would just get off of it. So that's in my experience what I think should be done to stop the clickbait. Just have those community notes at the bottom, like say, oh, this channel has engaged in clickbait numerous times, and this is basically what has happened. You know, stuff like that, and that would do that crap. Oh, hey, Long John. Do I watch Borat? Oh, I saw that movie a long time ago when I was a kid. That movie's reaching 20 years. Remember, 2006 is when it came out. That was a funny movie, I will say that. Like, there was a lot of stuff in that movie that was really funny. That movie was very provocative, I will give it that. But that was like that movie was like something else. Like, it was comedy done differently, because it was like people getting trolled and they didn't even realize that they were getting trolled during that. You know what I also found funny about that movie? In that movie, Borat speaks Polish. In a lot of the scenes when Borat is speaking, he's not actually speaking Kazakh. He's actually speaking Polish. I found that really funny. I understood him when he was speaking Polish. I did find that really funny that he was speaking Polish in a lot of the scenes. But in the other scenes, he was actually, when he was talking to Azamat, he wasn't actually speaking Kazakh. He was actually speaking Hebrew, I think it was, and then Azamat was actually speaking Armenian to him. So they were both speaking different languages to each other. That was like people that are watching, they're not really gonna catch on unless you speak the languages. But that was like, yeah, that movie. You know the that one scene when he went to the bed and breakfast and the old couple were there. And they tried to, you know, they served him food. During that scene, the old couple, they usually don't serve food at their bed and breakfast, but the producers told them to serve him food. Like, they told him that he was a reporter from Kazakhstan, and that's what the old people, like, believed that. But those old people, they were so nice to him. I did kind of feel bad for that. They probably must have gotten scared when he ran down the stairs in the middle of the night and was, like, screaming. But I do say it was funny. But the thing about that is that the old couple from that bed and breakfast, they actually saw the movie, and they were one of the few people that actually did not sue for that movie. They actually thought that it was funny. So, like, the old couple, you know, the one where he scared them at the bed and breakfast, they did actually see that, and they actually thought that the movie was funny. So they actually were able to take the joke. But a lot of other people, they ended up suing for that movie. But I will say one thing that Borat did really good. Can we type English here? Yeah, that glitch isn't happening anymore. English is, you know, not banned from the AI anymore. But one thing that I will say about Borat is one thing that Borat did expose is expose the rudeness in New York. Like, I'm from New York City, and so I can tell you, like, people in New York, like, what you saw in Borat, that was very realistic. That was all real, by the way. That was not fake. Like, the people that were being just extremely rude to him, like, that is very common. Like, you know, there's parts in the movies where he's not even, like, trolling. He's just talking to people. Like, I remember when he talked to that one guy in the subway, and he said to the guy in the subway, he's like, you know, hey, what is your name? Like, he says that in his accent. And the guy says to him, you know, my name is mind your own effing business. That's my name. That's what the guy says to him. I mean, that's not how you talk to people. So, like, you know, a lot of people in New York, in the New York part of the movie, were, like, very nasty to him. They were very rude to him. Last year, tenants sued the property owners over unsafe living conditions. Even though the case was dismissed, it raised concerns for many tenant residents. Well, if the case was dismissed, you know, that's the courts are not doing their job. The courts are clearly not doing their jobs in that situation. What I will say is, crap. They could sue, but you can still deduct, you know, the damages or the repairs from your rent. And if the landlord tries to take you to court, you can basically show, like, a documentation. You can show, like, a good paper trail. If you get, like, a good rental lawyer on your side, like, there are lawyers that know the rental law pretty well, you know, you show him, like, the paper trail. You showed that you told the landlord this issue needs to be fixed, and he didn't. And then you took it upon yourself to fix it, and you deduct it from the rent. You know, most courts will side with you at that point.
What in the hell? No deal is complete if it don't.
No, I think, wasn't that the movie with Jason Statham, Caton? You're still talking about it? No, we just finished talking about it. We were talking a little bit about Borat before. Some of the government is pretty corrupt. Yeah, that line. Thank you, Ghost Studio Comics. Thank you for the super chat. Try a round of GTA GeoGuessr. Sure, let me do one more bounty and I can do it then. Just make sure to remind me after this bounty.
Can I help you?
No, Liberty City. I have the game in my wish list. I just haven't had time. I have not played any new games, really. Burger King used AI to motivate their employees? What? Don't be a menace. I don't know if I've seen that movie, Visionary. I don't know, I don't know, like this, I will tell you guys something. I could never really get into the John Wick movies. I never really could. I did see the first one, but, like, I saw clips of, like, the other movies, and I just couldn't get into them. You know what movies I thought were better than the John Wick movies? The Equalizer movies. You know, the Equalizer? That one, I thought Equalizer was better than John Wick. So I know that might be unpopular. You know, people more like John Wick, but I liked Equalizer. And I liked Equalizer more because, like, Equalizer did not have as, like, John Wick has had a little bit more unrealistic characters, like just unrealistic stuff in it, where Equalizer, it wasn't the most realistic one, but at least it had a little bit more realism to it. It had believable enemies. Like, in John Wick 1, you had, like, the Russian Mafia, at least that was, like, a real enemy, but, like, some of the other ones, it was just, like, you know, the butler guy with, like, all the guns and stuff like that, like, you know, stuff like that. You know, I'm watching that, it's like, I just couldn't get into that. What was it, the reason I liked Equalizer is because in all the Equalizer movies, you had a pretty realistic enemy in all three Equalizer movies. I mean, in Equalizer 1, it was the Russian Mafia that were the main bad guys. In Equalizer 2, you know, it was a corrupt government agency. It was like it was the CIA agents. That's what they were, like corrupt CIA agents who like betrayed him. And then it was in Equalizer 3, the main bad guys were the Sicilian Mafia. So, like, all of them had, like, there's corrupt CIA agents, 100%. You know, the Russian Mafia and the Sicilian Mafia exist. So, like, all of the Equalizer movies had fairly realistic villains. So that's what I liked about them. Any comments on El Mencho's death and its impacts? Look, here's one thing I will say about this. Have you noticed how the Sinaloa cartel is not doing any kind of violence right now in Mexico? I mean, I know they're doing violence, don't get me wrong, but it's not on the scale that the Jalisco New Generation cartel is doing. Jalisco is the cartel that El Mencho ran. Now, Sinaloa are rivals of the Jalisco, and Mexico has not done an operation like this in a very long time where they've killed a cartel boss or arrested a cartel boss. It usually doesn't happen. And what I think is, and I don't really have proof for this, But what I think is a possibility is I think it's a possibility that the Mexican government might have killed Mencho on orders of another cartel. That's what might have basically happened. So I'm not defending Mencho by any means. He's a piece of shit. It's good that he's gone from this world. But the only thing I'm saying is because Mexico has so much corruption and the cartels have infiltrated the government of Mexico so much, like the cartels control so much of the Mexican government, that it honestly surprised me that they went after a cartel boss for once. So I personally think that it's highly probable that the reason they went after Mencho was because they were being ordered to by another rival cartel. That's what basically might have happened. And also, the thing about the Mexican president is she went on TV the other day and she was like saying that like, oh, Mexico isn't unsafe right now, it's safe, when over 100 people have died right now by the cartels. Like the cartels have killed 100 people in like the last week. Like they're literally burning cities, and the president of Mexico is acting like everything is fine, and she's going on TV and she's saying, oh, you know, violence against the cartels is wrong and stuff like that. She's saying that she's like it's fascist and authoritarian to, you know, to use the military to go after the cartels. That's the whole purpose of your military. Your military is to protect your country. Why wouldn't you not use the military to go after the cartels? The whole purpose of your military is to literally protect your country, and the cartel is destroying your country. So like that's what I'll say, is that I'm convinced like the Mexican government is very corrupt. Like you cannot change my mind on that. I'm convinced they are very corrupt in a lot of the stuff they do, and it's such a shame. You know, Mexico is such a beautiful country. I love Mexican culture, and I specifically love Mexican food. Like quesadillas are probably, you know, my favorite, you know, one of my favorite dishes of all time. But it's a shame that, you know, in Mexico, if it did not have all this corruption that it does, it would be just as rich as Canada. Like I'm fairly convinced of that. If Mexico did not have the corruption that it has, it would be just as rich as Canada. It would be successful and rich as Canada. But, you know, the corruption has really held that country back for a very long time.
Get the hell out of here right now. You're as good as dead. What the devil?
Oh, he just killed his own boss right now. He just set his own boss on fire. What do you think about General Patton and Montgomery's rivalry during World War II? Here's the thing is Patton and Montgomery both did some bad things during the war, but I would say I dislike Montgomery the most. Montgomery, I really don't like that general. Like, I know a lot of British people like him, but I really don't like Montgomery. I think Montgomery was a scumbag. I think he really was. I think, you know, you could argue that Patton was a scumbag, but Montgomery I thought was much worse than Patton. Much worse than him. I'll explain that in a little bit. Let me just kill all these guys, because I just cannot focus with these guys shooting at me. Watch The Equalizer, Vertical. You will not regret it. It's a great movie. I'm telling you, you will love that film. Such a good movie. Okay, so about the real world GeoGuessr, not the GTA version. Oh, I didn't even know there's a real world one. I guess I could look into it. Okay. Crap. Montgomery, right? So about like Patton. Here is what Patton, you know, with Patton. Patton did do some bad things. You know, when he was a commander. Like, for example, probably the worst thing that Patton probably did, that I can think of, probably when he attacked the Bonus Army March. So in the 1930s, for example, in the 1930s there was a Bonus Army March, and what the Bonus Army was, these were like World War I veterans that were promised their bonus from the government. And because of the Great Depression, they wanted that bonus now. They wanted that money now. Now what they did was they camped in front of the Capitol building. What Hoover did, and this is what really destroyed Hoover's political career, he could never recover from this, Hoover thought that it was a good idea to use the military to clear out those World War I veterans. And Patton, and I think it was MacArthur, I don't know if Eisenhower was there. I don't know if he was there, but I know Patton and MacArthur were there, and they used tanks and tear gas. And one of the guys that was arrested at that march was a World War I veteran who actually saved Patton's life. So imagine that. It's like World War I veterans that just wanted their pay. They wanted to be paid for the service that they gave to their country, and the U.S. government basically used tanks and tear gas on them. It was like one of the, you know, biggest abuses of authority an American president has ever done in history, was what Hoover did. It was disgusting, and Patton was part of that. Patton, was one of the commanders who cleared those World War I protesters out. So that was like an extremely dishonorable thing that he did. There's a lot of people that blame Patton for the Biscari massacre. The Biscari massacre, is that really Patton's fault? It's debated on whether it is his fault or not, but I would say maybe there's some blame, but I don't think you can say that Patton, wanted that massacre to happen. What the Biscari massacre was, it was in Sicily. And what happened was when the U.S. invaded Sicily, there was a bunch of Italian snipers that were just sniping at the American soldiers. And these snipers were even killing medics. Just American medics, which you're not supposed to do something like that. You're not supposed to, shoot at medics. That's a war crime. And what happened is Patton gave specific orders. He said, show the enemy no mercy. That's what he said during the operation. Now, when the U.S. had basically surrounded that Italian garrison, the Italian soldiers had surrendered, including the snipers. What the U.S. Army did at that point is they massacred all of the Italian prisoners. Even not just the snipers, but everyone. All of the soldiers that were involved in that battle were basically killed. And that was probably the worst U.S. war crime of World War II was the Biscari massacre. So all of the Italian prisoners were just massacred in that battle. And so when the soldiers were asked why they did this, why they killed these prisoners of war, they were told that Patton said show the enemy no mercy. And then Patton later said, I didn't mean it like that. Was Patton really responsible for that? I don't think that Patton specifically told them to kill prisoners of war. I don't think he meant it in that way. But the way he said it, he said, "Show the enemy no mercy." He was in his eyes, he was trying to toughen up his soldiers, but his words were basically taken for completely 100%, and that's what ended up happening. So that's what I will I would say about that. Patton has some blame for the Biscari massacre. I wouldn't put it completely on him, but he does have some blame for it. There's also the, Patton also did not understand what PTSD was, post-traumatic stress disorder. He thought that PTSD was cowardice. He didn't think that something like that existed. And there was actually, when Patton walked into a field hospital, there was actually a soldier that was suffering from PTSD. Did Patton get tried for that war crime? No, he didn't. But when it came to the soldier that had PTSD, what Patton did was Patton called him a coward and slapped him across the face. And then what Patton did was Patton was forced to actually apologize to the entire company over that, because the soldier was suffering from mental problems. And Patton really didn't want to apologize, but he ended up doing it. He ended up apologizing for stuff like that. So that's some of the bad things that Patton did. Montgomery, for example, the British general, I think he's worse than Patton. I hate Montgomery. Patton, when it comes to Patton, I at least have a more neutral view of him, because Patton might have done some bad things, but at least he helped lead us to victory in World War II. Montgomery, on the other hand, the reason that I hate Montgomery, I really hate him, is because I look at it from both an American and a Polish perspective. So both the Americans and the Polish hate Montgomery, and I'm both American and I have Polish ancestry. And so let's go to the Americans. Why do the Americans hate Montgomery? The reason the Americans hated Montgomery is because Montgomery was extremely arrogant. Montgomery was very narcissistic. When there was Americans, Montgomery acted like he was their commander, they were his soldiers. So the way that Montgomery would Montgomery thought that Americans should be obedient to him, even though he was a British general, he was not an American general. He basically treated Americans like crap. He had this very entitled elitist mindset. He's Americans are uncivilized, they're stupid people. That's how Montgomery saw a lot of Americans. The only American general that did not hate Montgomery was Eisenhower, but Eisenhower didn't even have a really positive view of him. They were kind of more neutral. They weren't really friends. But almost all the other American military commanders hated Montgomery, and there's a reason for that. But when it came to the Polish hate Montgomery the absolute worst. The reason that the Polish hate Montgomery is because of Operation Market Garden. Operation Market Garden was Montgomery's plan, and Operation Market Garden was a plan to end World War II by Christmas. Montgomery wanted to end it by Christmas. Now, Montgomery wanted to be known as the guy that would help end World War II. It was more about his glory and his ego. It wasn't necessarily about ending the war. The American plan to defeat Germany in World War II was to slowly advance into Germany. That's what it was. It was cross the Rhine, slowly advance into Germany with armor and infantry support, and eventually, box Germany in with the Soviets. That was the American plan. Box Germany in with the Soviets from the east and the Americans to the west. It was to box Germany and do a slow advance with tanks and infantry. That was the American plan. It was going to take longer than Montgomery's plan, but it was safer. It would be less casualties. Montgomery's plan was, let's just, airdrop, thousands of paratroopers, British, American, and Polish paratroopers. And yes, there was Polish paratroopers that were in the British army. His plan was, let's drop all of these paratroopers behind enemy lines in the Netherlands. And these paratroopers, the idea of it was that the paratroopers were going to secure vital, like, highways, road lines, sabotage enemy supplies, secure bridges, train stations, stuff like that, and that this would cause chaos behind the German lines. But the thing about that is that the Germans were much more prepared than what we imagined. Like, the Americans didn't like the plan of Market Garden. They didn't like it. A lot of Montgomery basically believed that Germany was on its last legs. But this was, August 1944, September 1944. Germany was still not on its last legs. It was on its last legs at the beginning of 1945. Like, January 1945 is really when Germany was on its last legs. Germany was going to lose the war regardless, but they were still a force to be reckoned with. And so you can't, rush something like that. You cannot rush an operation like that. But Montgomery was like, oh, let's end the war before Christmas. So it's more about his glory and his ego. And what ended up happening is when British paratroopers landed at Arnhem, they were surrounded. Like, Arnhem was a disaster. Like, it was a complete disaster. Like, they underestimated the amount of tanks that the Germans had. The Germans surrounded them. The British paratroopers got destroyed and captured at Arnhem. It was a military disaster. And what ended up happening is Polish paratroopers were sent in during Market Garden to help save those British paratroopers. But here's the crazy thing about this. The Polish general in charge of this, and let me make sure I get his name right here. Polish World War II general, Market Garden. It's Sosobieski, I think his name is. I just want to make sure I pronounce his name right. So, Stanisław Sosobowski. That's how you pronounce it in Polish. That was the name of the Polish general. So, Stanisław Sosobowski, he was against Market Garden. He did not think that Market Garden was a good plan. So, both the Polish and the Americans were against Market Garden. So, you're probably wondering, why would the Polish and the Americans go along with Market Garden if they thought that it was a bad idea? The reason the Polish went along with it is because the Polish were basically, they were under the British. They were under the British command. They, had their army in the West, but they were still serving under the British. So that was the why the Polish went along with it. The reason the Americans went along with it, even though we knew it was a bad idea, was because we did not want to split Allied forces. We didn't want the British to do Operation Market Garden, and then we would do our own slow advance into Germany. We were going to say, if the British are going to do Market Garden, then we'll support them in it. So we didn't want our forces to be broken up. So we knew that Market Garden was a bad idea, but the reason we went with it is because we didn't want our forces to be broken up. So Montgomery rushed through Market Garden, and that Polish general who was against Market Garden, he thought that it was a bad idea, but he still deployed his troops. And when the Polish got sent into Market Garden, they tried their best to reach the British, but they were behind the water. I forget what the name of the body of water was that they got dropped behind, but they had to cross that, and the Germans had basically controlled the bridge. So if anybody knows the river that I'm talking about, I don't know what it was called, but I just know they couldn't cross it because there was a specific body of water, and the Germans had controlled the bridge. And the Polish had made attempts to try to get to the British, but they couldn't, because just how dangerous the area was. And Market Garden was a complete disaster. Now, when Market Garden collapsed, the Americans were blamed for it, and the Polish were blamed for it. But specifically, the Polish took the majority of the blame for it, even though it was a British plan, and it was Montgomery's plan. They warned him about it, they told him not to do Market Garden, but he still did Market Garden anyways. And the really disgusting thing about this, that Polish general, Sosobowski, who was against Market Garden, they blamed the whole thing on him. They said that it was his fault that the operation was a disaster, even though he was against the operation from the start. He thought that it was not a good idea to do it because Montgomery was a very powerful force in Britain. He came from a very important family, and he was like the top general in Britain, and it was a matter of pride. And so what they did was they wanted to protect Montgomery's image. They said, the top British commander can't have led us to a military disaster. We have to find a scapegoat. And so what they did was they blamed Sosobowski for that, the Polish general, and they threw him under the bus for that when it wasn't his fault. And they blamed the Polish paratroopers for that when it wasn't their fault either. And the story gets even more depressing, and it gets worse. The Polish paratroopers could not return to Poland after World War II. They couldn't. The reason they couldn't is because the communist Stalin had basically taken over the country. And so if they went back to Poland, they'd be killed. They'd be sent to a gulag or to be executed because a lot of those guys were anti-communist. They were anti-communist Polish patriots, and so they could not go back to Poland. So a lot of them ended up staying in Britain. And the story gets more messed up because those Polish soldiers were not allowed to march in the Victory Day parade. They weren't. And the reason they weren't is because Churchill thought that it would offend Stalin. Stalin did not want to see the Polish soldiers march in that parade, and because Churchill did not want to offend Stalin, he didn't let them march in the parade. So imagine that. Imagine, you're a Polish soldier. You fought, what was it? Almost, 5.5 years. Poland was, where World War II started. And now the war's finally over. You can't even march in the Victory Day parade. You're banned from it because, the British are scared. We want to keep good relations with the Soviets. We don't want to offend Stalin. So that's why a lot of Polish people, they got really mad at Britain over that crap. But the story gets more disturbing. It gets even worse. If you thought that was bad, it gets even worse. The Polish soldiers who served under the British command, they were denied pensions. They were not allowed to get pensions. So all the British soldiers, they got pensions after the war. The Polish soldiers didn't. And the British command, their argument was, it's Poland's responsibility. Poland should pay the Polish soldiers pensions, even though those Polish soldiers had served under British command. They were in the British army. They served under British command. The British government refused to pay them pensions over that. And the Polish communist government refused to pay them pensions over that. So a lot of these guys, they ended up going into poverty. They ended up getting homeless. And that same Polish general, this guy was a general. You know what ended up happening to him? He ended up working in a factory, and he ended up going homeless. And he died on the streets trying to take care of his mentally ill son, because his son had mentally ill mental problems, and he was trying to take care of his son. He was trying to get medication for his son and constantly take care of his son, and he couldn't afford it. So imagine this guy was like a respected Polish general in World War II, and now this guy was like homeless on the streets and working in a factory to try to support his mentally ill son. He was just abandoned, screwed over, and just blamed for that. And, Montgomery was praised, and the Polish general, Sosabowski, was completely thrown under the bus. So that's why Polish people really hate Montgomery for that. They really hate him for the how Polish soldiers were just treated in Britain afterwards, just the amount of disrespect that they got. So that's why, like, most Polish people, they have never forgotten about this, and that's why, a lot of Polish people, they call it Western betrayal, specifically on that. They basically feel like Britain had betrayed them, and so that's why a lot of Polish people, they really hate Churchill, and they really hate Montgomery because of this, this crap that ended up happening. And here's the really messed up thing. To this day, this is, 2026 now, the British government has actually never made a statement acknowledging that was wrong. They have basically said, we have regrets over that, but they have never basically apologized to Poland. There's never been like a diplomatic statement from the British government apologizing for how those Polish soldiers were treated in Britain after the war. But there was one country that did acknowledge it. You know who was? Netherlands. The country where Market Garden happened, the Dutch, they basically recognized that the Polish had been wronged, and they had been scapegoated for that. When it was a British plan, it was a British disaster, and they tried to blame the Polish for it. And so in 2006, the Dutch government actually exonerated Sosabowski, and they said that it was not that Polish general's fault, it was actually Montgomery's fault for that whole operation that happened. And so they recognized that the Polish paratroopers had tried, they were thrown into a bad area, and there wasn't really much more that they could do. So the Netherlands gained Poland's respect because it did acknowledge that. And this is the country where it happened. So the people on the ground, they understood what was happening. They understood it was not the Polish soldiers' fault. But that's what I say, is that the British government, they covered for Montgomery. And have you ever noticed how after Market Garden, Montgomery never really got another top position in the military after that? It was because of Market Garden, because they covered for his image, they protected his image, but he was never able to really command a large force after that. Eisenhower took over because Market Garden was such a disaster. And the thing is, a lot of American soldiers had been really pissed. They were really pissed at Montgomery because Market Garden was a complete failure. It was a disaster. It was, Market Garden was probably the biggest, Allied disaster of World War II that I can think of, at least on the Western Front. At least on the Western Front, it was the largest disaster was Market Garden. When it came to Market Garden, Montgomery said that it was 90% successful. 90% successful. He was like, it was 90% successful. He would not even admit that it was a failure. There was a disaster. So that's why I hate Montgomery. I think Montgomery was a scumbag. It was his narcissism, his arrogance. He was just a complete scumbag and stuff like that. And so, if anybody has seen Band of Brothers, and Band of Brothers Band of Brothers based on a true story, those guys were real people. Just imagine that what you saw in Band of Brothers in the earlier episodes, Market Garden, that was Montgomery's plan, what the Americans had gone through in that. And so imagine being an American soldier surviving Operation Market Garden, nearly dying, seeing that your friends die, and then the stupid general who did that stuff says, it was 90% successful. So I can imagine how many American soldiers were just so angry at Montgomery for that. They absolutely despise his guts. So yes, the person, I know that I gave a really long answer, so one person was asking me what I thought of Montgomery in World War II. That was, what I think of him. I think he was a scumbag. I want to make this into a short one day. One day I want to make this in like a historical World War II short explaining why Montgomery sucks. But unfortunately, I don't know if I'd be able to fit all of that in 3 minutes. I don't think, because shorts are only 3 minutes. I don't know if I could fit all that in 3 minutes. Everything that I just said. So that's that was that. But that's why Poland, really hates Churchill and hates Montgomery. Brits did kind of try with the Polish Resettlement Act of 1947. The Polish Resettlement Act, what that basically did was it let Polish people stay in Britain. It did not, they did not get paid for their service in World War II. So basically, all of those Polish soldiers that had fought in the British Army during World War II, they fought without pay. Just imagine that. And I understand they're not fighting primarily for pay, but they need money at the end of the day to support their families. And so just imagine that, serving in the British Army for years, and you get paid nothing. Zero. Nothing. For your entire service. So, like, you just imagine what those guys must have been going through. My day's going good. How are you, Jobby? Oh, and right, what's his name? I'm sorry. Shiny Knight wanted me to do, GeoGuessr. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Are you still here, Shiny Knight? Some tenants shared reviews saying there was homeless people staying in the laundry room and that management wasn't doing enough to fix the problem. Thank God that I did not deal with that issue. Oh, man. I missed 3 super chats. I did? Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. I find it funny how displeased Nico was with Roman when he first got to Liberty City. Yeah, because he believed all of Roman's lies. That's what made Nico so mad. Silver Fox, thank you for the super chat. Thank you, King Will, for sponsoring my channel for over a year. Hey, bro, happy Friday with, Nemisio, who's Nemisio? Oh, is Nemisio another cartel guy? Wait, Mexico right now is in chaos with the Jalisco cartel. Ever seen the film 1 Hour Photo? No, I haven't, Aaron. I want to know what the Mexican president is on, because, man, it must be some good stuff. Like, how does someone even think like that? Yeah, so what Mario is talking about is Mario's talking about the comment that I made earlier where the Mexican president, she went on TV. Like, anybody here seen that speech? I'm sure somebody's seen it, where she was, like, saying, like, oh, Mexico is not a violent country, it's a safe country. Like, she was saying stuff like that when really over 100 people have been massacred in, like, the last, week? Over 100 people are dead. And she's saying that Mexico is not in chaos right now, and, like, the cartel are burning cities. And she's saying that, violence against the cartels is wrong, and that the military should not be used. Really, the whole purpose of your military is to protect your country. That's El Mencho's real name. Oh, that's his real name. Oh, I just know him by El Mencho. That's it. I don't even know what his real name is. I know who Mencho is. I know Mencho. You know how I know Mencho? I know Mencho from that video. Has anybody ever seen that video where Mencho just like threatens the where Mencho threatens the police chief? Anybody seen that video? There's like a video on where Mencho threatens like a police chief. Like he calls up a Mexican police chief and threatens him. The fact that Mencho has the police chief's personal number shows just the amount of corruption. Montgomery even treated Canadian troops in a patronizing way, too, yeah. I would not want to work with somebody like Montgomery. No, hell no. Yeah, you can join me, Nacho. I like when you talk about history. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. Who's the most evil Central American dictator and why? It might have been Somoza. Somoza that was in Nicaragua. But right now, the most evil leader, at least in modern history right now, is Daniel Ortega, the dictator of Nicaragua. And yes, he's currently the dictator in power. Daniel Ortega is a really messed up guy. Yeah. Daniel Ortega had the military go on the streets and just shoot protesters. He also had his own brother killed. He had his brother murdered for speaking out against him. Imagine that, killing your own brother. It's disgusting. But that's Daniel Ortega. You know what I cannot stand about these stupid socialist dictators? You know what I can't stand about them? Is that they constantly blame all of their problems on America. That's what Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua do. All our problems, everything is all America's fault. How is it America's fault that you took your military on the streets and shot your own people for protesting against you? How is that America's fault? That is so, you know, I know America's not a perfect country. We get involved in other countries' affairs too at times, but all these dictators, they just use America as a scapegoat constantly. It's their own stupid socialist governments that have caused all these problems. Wasn't Daniel Ortega a hero at one point? To a degree. He was a revolutionary. He was a very famous revolutionary in Nicaragua's history. You know, he led the FSLN during the Nicaraguan Civil War. My family is from Nicaragua. I want to go visit, but my family says it's too dangerous. So you know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Daniel Ortega, right, Kenny? How he's a really messed up person. How do you feel about albino rad scorpions? Oh my god, I hate those in Fallout 3. I really hate the albino rad scorpions in Fallout 3. And you know what I hate the most about the rad scorpions? I hate that I waste so much ammo on them. Like, it's a giant waste of ammo. Ever seen the anime Ghost Stories? No, I don't think I have. The apartment had a serious pest problem and management did not properly address it. Ugh. Yeah, we could, General. I'll play Vice City Stories again this year. This year, we'll play it. Did President Truman have those Polish vets in World War II victory parade? I don't know about that. That I don't know. The only thing I know about Truman is that Truman did stick up for Poland much more than the British did. He stuck up for Poland much more than Churchill did. He called out Stalin, and you know, Truman is really one of our best presidents. Like, he is. If you had to ask me the most underrated president in American history, it's Harry Truman. Harry Truman was a great president. He really was. You know, I think he was a much better president than FDR. He was way better than FDR.
You did good with that last thing, hey? Okay. I guessed as much. By the way, did you ever meet...
Do I think the Gilded Age was one of the worst times in American history? What do you mean by the Gilded Age?
Fine lad. Be a real shame if he got himself hanged.
What most honorable things the Mafia protagonist did?
Bad because I reckon he did do it, but I also reckon the bastard he murdered.
The most honorable thing Tommy did?
Well, I know this because it was his brother he murdered. And find a kinder fella than Phineas. Declan was a real sack of shit. I won't bore you with the
Sparing
details,
Frank. And the most honorable thing Vito did.
You haven't seen a strange bunch about. 25.
What was the most best thing Vito did?
You let me know.
Vito didn't really do that many good things. You know. Yeah, Truman was president after World War II. I'm trying to think what Vito did. Did Vito do any good things in Mafia 2? I can't really think of it. Maybe the only good... Yeah, maybe saving Leo. Maybe that. At least that was somewhat honorable. But yeah, you know, when you really think about it, I mean, Vito's kind of a scumbag. He really is. Like, I mean, would you guys say that Vito is probably the scummiest Mafia protagonist? I think he probably is. Like, would you guys say that? I think Vito is kind of the scummiest Mafia protagonist when you really think about it. He really doesn't care about others. He only cares about himself. He cares about just getting money constantly. He kind of is. He kind of is the biggest, most scummy Mafia protagonist. You know, at least the other, you know, the other Mafia protagonists, they had something that they were at least doing. Like, you know, Lincoln at least wanted revenge for his family being murdered. What was it? Tommy was trying to take care of Sarah. Enzo was in love with Isabella. But, you know, Vito was always all for himself. That's all it was. It was always all for himself. Vito helped his sister, maybe. But, yeah. I mean, would you guys agree with that Vito is probably the scummiest Mafia protagonist out of all of them? Hey, bro, miss me in the parties and play with you? Yeah, Brandon, whenever you want to come back. Yeah, Vito is kind of a cold-blooded person. Like, I remember that when Henry says to Joe during that drive, when they're going from the deal, and he says to Joe, it's like, oh, you know, you're going to hell. You haven't been to church in like a long time. Vito says to Henry, he's like, you're realizing that now? That's what he says. So like he's basically admitting, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to hell. I have no shame. That's what Vito is like. So like Vito is really a scummy person. He's not like I know he's like Vito. I think is the most popular Mafia character. Like he is the most loved Mafia character. But when you really think about it, he is a scumbag. Now there's characters that are way worse than him. Like Henry is much more scummy than Vito. He is, and you know, there's, you know, Derek is way worse than Vito. But it's but you know out of all the protagonists, the characters you play as, you know, probably Vito is probably the most scummy one. Hang on, my game stuck on a black screen here now. Oh, that time gunner, that was a yeah, that was a lot of problems. Like, you had Boss Tweed, he was the most corrupt politician probably in America's history. Boss Tweed stole millions of dollars and ended up fleeing to Cuba. The parking lot flooded, and I was honestly worried my car would be ruined. Oh my god, Spreezo. I'm sorry you went through that. I think Vito is more scummy than Claude from GTA 3. Oh, yeah. I mean, nah. No, I thought you meant Claude. Claude is way worse than Vito. You know, at least Vito has some things that he cares about. Claude doesn't really care about anyone. You mean El Mencho? Add me back as Ascari Prime. Wait, did I delete you? I usually don't delete people unless they've been offline for a year. Hey, Grove Street for Life. Thank you for the super chat. But I'm not gonna add anybody until March 1st. March 1st is when I'm gonna start adding people, and that's gonna be after my stream. I took a break from adding people because I just have to, because I know there's gonna be copycats after that Griefer incident. I'm not saying you're doing that, Grove Street, don't worry. But I could add you, but after like March 1st. No, I'm new. Oh, well, I can add you, but later on. I can add you after March 1st, if that's okay. My favorite South Park episode, besides the World of Warcraft one, probably the Crips and the Bloods one. That was funny. This is for you. Thanks, bro. Really love your vibes. Thank you, Internet Mouse. Thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you. On here. I bet a lot of you guys watching this right now have never seen that before. But yeah, that's how you're supposed to do that mission, because that mission is a stealth mission. A lot of people always fail the stealth, but yes, you can do that mission stealth. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to poison it. If you get detected, you're supposed to blow up the still. I didn't know that was possible. Yeah. Was Rhodesia a mercenary country? Well, Rhodesia was a really weird country. Rhodesia was like a white supremacist country. It was controlled by the white minority that lived in Rhodesia. Rhodesia later became Zimbabwe. But Rhodesia, here's the thing is, almost every single African country hated Rhodesia. And the reason that they hated Rhodesia is because Rhodesia had a very powerful military, one of the most powerful in the region. But on top of that, Rhodesia had mercenaries. And they would send these mercenaries to almost every single, African, conflict. So whenever there was any kind of African conflict going around, Rhodesia would constantly send their mercenaries to a lot of countries and destabilize them. And so that's why so many people hated Rhodesia for that, because they would constantly send their mercenaries to other countries. No, I've never seen a U.S. World War II submarine. Yeah, and then the 1920s were good, Gunner. How do fans join your game? Well, I'd have to add you. I still don't understand why Hoover Dam was so important in New Vegas lore, because it powered Vegas. Like, Vegas's power is from Hoover Dam.
Pardon me.
My favorite chips, Pringles or Lay's. I like a lot of them different ones. I know I shouldn't eat so much potato chips, but I do like them. They force you to pay the full October rent even though you lived there until October 10th. I don't think they can do that. What do I think about Singapore? It's a very successful country. What horse is that? This the horse that you get in the trader. I forget the name of it. Ever try hot Cheetos? Yes. I'm trying to remember what the horse was called. It was used in the trader stuff. Do you know that most Nazi warships are sunken? Yeah, a lot of old, you know, Japanese and German ships were actually taken by the U.S. after World War II and used for target practice, just sunk in the middle of the ocean. Thank you, Fresh AC, for the super chat. You know, if college campuses or high schools had a professional as a history major, I would definitely make history my favorite subject because I love learning a lot from you. You make it so enjoyable. Thank you, Internet Mouse. Yes, Gunner, Teddy Roosevelt's views on World War I are probably the most disagreeable that he had. Do you got any advice on if you're working in an uncomfortable environment? With people talking negative about you, and they don't help out, and they always are in the office joking around with the boss not helping. So the boss is aware that there are people that are spreading rumors behind your back, and he's engaging in that too. I would basically say at that point is the only solution I would say at that point is to try to look for another job. I'm not trying to be like very negative here, but if you have your boss who even he isn't engaging in that, which that's very, you know, unprofessional of a boss to do something like that. Like the boss is, you know, supposed to keep the business running. And if the boss is doing crap like that, is also, you know, talking behind your back. The only tip, you don't have to give those scumbags 2 weeks, King Will. What I would say to you is try to look for another job. The second that you get hired for that job, just quit that other job. Don't even give them 2 weeks notice. If they want to talk behind your back and, you know, talk crap, then you don't owe them 2 weeks either. Did you hear of a woman that left her dog in the airport? Wait, what, Brandon?
But you'll have to do some looking. And when you get them, don't hold back.
Because I will tell you something, King Will. If you stay in a job, right, and that job is severely, you know, people are doing crap like that, like they're talking behind your back, that job is going to severely affect your mental health staying there longer and longer. I would get out of there as soon as I can. I miss when you play the Saboteur. Here's the thing: when I finish Yakuza Kiwami 100%, I could go back and do the Saboteur 100%. The scariest storyline I've ever heard in a video game. I don't know. Have to think about that one. Maybe in a way, Gunner.
You all better be keeping your eyes out, or I'll take them eyes out of your head myself. We is outlaws out of state, and while we is, I am the only one getting any rest. Go and take a load off. Good Lord!
We're moving again soon.
Wait till I get my knife.
I forgot about this. These guys don't appear on the map. Oh Oh man, I forgot about this, that these guys don't appear on the map. She left her dog in the airport? What the? I'm doing good, Chief Cookie. How are you? Is Lincoln, after the ending, the most powerful boss in the Mafia series? Yeah. Ghost Recon Wildlands later this year. We'll do it. Do I think Stephen Ogg is an asshole? Well, I would just say that, like, the way he treated some fans that, like, you know, called him Trevor, like, that was very, you know, rude and not nice, like, doing stuff like that. Nice clothes and hat, thank you. Do you think Days Gone 2 got cancelled by Sony because of the critics? Yeah. I think it was because of that. Okay.
Because of that horse, I'd do it again if I could. At least I ain't walking out.
You can send it to me, Brandon. Yeah, I can take a look at it. I'll play the Metal Gear Solid series later this year, and I know it's probably good that I waited, because now you got 3 and 4 coming.
You can wipe my damn ass with it and show it to the government. You think I care if you lock me up? Hot meals, a roof over my head? No, I don't care a bit. I'll enjoy the hospitality. Till I'm done, stinking bastard. You think that thing will hold me? And who is this?
Hey, your carriage awaits, Your Highness.
Okay, I'm gonna get B here. Judgment. Yeah, I gotta play Judgment one day too. Is the combat in Judgment similar to Yakuza? Pearl, why were the Loyalists so brutal towards the Patriots? The British Legion had by Tarleton is one example. Because they saw the Americans as traitors. They said, oh, you know, you betrayed the motherland, you betrayed the king, and now you must suffer for it. They didn't care about the hardships that Americans were going through. They just saw them as traitors. That's the problem with the British in the Revolutionary Wars. They could never sympathize with Americans. They never looked at it from an American perspective. You know, what Americans were going through. You know, the crazy thing about that is that entire war could have been completely avoided. The whole thing could have been completely avoided, and America would have been part of Canada today. General, be careful. There's a lot of them over here.
this for you.
Okay, here we go. Have I played any arcade rail shooters? Oh, I used to play a Time Crisis game back in the day. Tell us a story about the old country, Poland. Not that I can think of anything at the right now at the moment, though. What's wrong, Chief? Man, history's such an interesting caviar here. It always makes me question how so many events could have been easily avoided, but at the same time, if something changed, would it result in the future? Yep.
You should smell them at the other end. It's hot.
Okay, I'll look at it later, Brandon. Most honorable things Lincoln and Enzo did? Well, Lincoln, it was, probably saving the girl from the cult. Or stopping the corrupt sheriff. Most honorable thing Enzo did, yeah, I'm gonna prepare to defend here.
This one must be from me.
Here we go.
Cock-looking bastard, you're dead.
Damn. Okay, there we go. Okay. That was awkward. You didn't say anything. I don't know, Visionary. I guess whenever they make Mafia 4, I guess we'll see what the canon ending was. There are reasons why I hate living at that apartment and I'm happy at all. It received 2.8 out of 5 stars on Google Maps. I can tell you why I chose that apartment. Well, I hope you never have to deal with something like that again. And I'm sorry that you went from that. Like, more landlords should care about their tenants, and I understand it's a business and all, but, you know, you can't treat your tenants like crap, and you can't let your tenants, you know, live in such terrible conditions. You can't be a slumlord. Well done, Pat. Thank you, Minion Dave. In Fargo, who would win, Lorne Malvo or Season 2 Hansi? Probably Lorne Malvo, yeah. That is true, Pierce Jones. Okay, let me play this. No, I never watched The Boys. I might, Brandon. There is one crazy current events video that I want to cover this this week. Oh, General, I was going to do the public poker here. You could try to search and see if you can join in, but I don't know if you'll find this place. I understood why the rent was so cheap, like $1,100 for one-bedroom apartment. It can be a sign. I had the same thing happen when I went to a hotel in Vegas in, what was it, 2024. I thought it was a good deal, but it turns out the hotel was just so bad. Oyo Hotel? Yes, it was that. Okay, 9 and 6. Let's see what we get here. Great. Controller battery. Are you that bad at the game that you gotta do the play poker glitch? I know who you are. You're the guy who's been griefing me on a lot of streams. And honestly speaking, you have lost any right to criticize me for going into a private lobby glitch when you are the one using God mode. Lily, there's a video on your channel of you using God mode to kill me repeatedly in Reddit Online, and you're saying that I'm bad at the game because I want to play in a private lobby. You should look at yourself in the mirror before you say that to me. I don't know how anybody who uses God mode can accuse me of being a bad player at the game. Anybody who uses God mode in this game is honestly pathetic. If they make Mafia 4, I feel like they should use some of the open world elements from Mafia 3 and improve upon it. I think if done right, it would be a perfect in a Las Vegas setting. Yeah, I would love to see Mafia 4 be set in Vegas. Vegas, I would like to see it. 100% that city. Folding here. I just don't understand how somebody who uses God mode can have the nerve to literally say that somebody else is bad at the game. Like, literally, it's like when somebody is in God mode, you can't even kill them in the game. So, like, there's a reason I don't want to play with people like that. Yeah, I know people expect a reaction, but that's just it. I'm not even gonna really acknowledge the guy anymore. It's just the fact that the guy just gets on Reddit online just to kill me, and then he gets frustrated that I'm in a private lobby and he can't even kill me. Wow, look at this hand. Look at these cards right now. Like, Lily, you lost the right to talk about skill the moment you use God mode. If he would have actually griefed me without using God mode, then okay. At least there's that. But the fact that somebody uses God mode and just... That's why your your review of that hotel in Vegas reminded me of my experience living in that apartment complex. Oh. It was even worse than that. You should be able to give people money in GTA. Well, the thing about that, Daniel Rodriguez, is you actually used to be able to. So, like, you actually could give people money at one point in GTA Online. When the game first came out on PS3, you could do that. And modders were giving people, you know, billions of dollars. And then Rockstar took that feature away to give people, giving people money. They took that out. They only did the share cash option for jobs. Could you please say with the Grandpa Mason voice? Oh. Hey, Beryl, I got one final question. How long have you been running scams from Lagos, Nigeria? Yeah, that was, that. For people that want to know what that is that Andrew is saying right there in chat, there was this scammer that I called. What was it's like 2 years ago I made the video. So there was this scammer that was running an investment scam. I knew that it was a scam, but I decided to mess with the scammer. And what I did was I called up the scammer. I convinced the scammer to get into a phone call with me when they just wanted to text. And what I did was I tricked the scammer into clicking a link. And they clicked the link, and I had their IP address, and I knew where the scammer was, and I knew the scammer was in Lagos, Nigeria, and she was claiming to me what she was in America. Was she the one that was claiming to be in California? Because I remember one of them told me that they were in California when no, it clearly said they were in Nigeria, but they were claiming to be an American investor. And I convinced the scammer that I was an old man, and I just kept doing an old man voice, and the scammer believed it. And then at the end, I told the scammer that I knew that they were in Nigeria, and she was going into denial mode. It's a video on my channel. If you just go on my YouTube channel, just look up like scammer, like just type in the word scammer, and you'll see like plenty of videos. It's me calling up scammers and just pissing them off. But I can't stand people that do crap like that. Honestly, it's just disgusting. These people have no shame, no honor, nothing. Do you think GTA 6 will have money glitches? Somewhat, probably something. Nothing to the extent of like GTA Online, but probably something. I just look at that money that I just won. You know what disgusted me the most? You know what scammer, out of all the scammers that I talked to, you know what scammer pissed me off the most? The scammer that pissed me off the most was the one where I did the Dmitry voice. Remember that? Where I convinced the scammer that I was from Belarus? Remember that one? And I told the scammer that my name was Dmitry Raskolov, and the scammer was like so stupid he didn't even look up the name. He didn't even know who it. Like literally, I was on a phone call with the scammer, and I was pretending. What I did to the scammer is I told the scammer that my name was Aiden Pierce. That's what I said. I said my name was Aiden Pierce, and I was doing an old man voice, and then I was doing also an Eastern European accent, and I said that my name was Dmitry Raskolov, and the scammer was like so stupid he didn't even realize I was pretending to be two video game characters in the call. And I pretended to be a rival scammer while I was talking to the scammer. And the scammer was like saying on the phone, like, no, don't send money to the Belarusian guy. When I was the Belarusian guy, I was just pretending to the scammer that I was on the line with another scammer because I wanted to see how they would react if I pretended to talk to another scammer. And they were like saying, oh, that person's a scammer and everything like that. They were just, they were getting so mad. But what pissed me off about that call was when the scammer was basically saying like, oh, I'm a Christian. I would not scam you. When I asked the scammer, like, how do I know you're not scamming me? Oh, I'm a Christian, blah, blah, blah. Like, that just pissed me off so much when you're trying to use religion to manipulate somebody and just saying, oh, I'm a Christian, I wouldn't lie to you, I wouldn't scam you, when it's clearly a scam. Like I said, these people have no shame whatsoever. They no honor. Like, that's the unfortunate thing is people don't know what honor is anymore these days. People don't have an honor as like they used to back in the day. The first time I played Black Ops 2, I tried to shoot Menendez. When I was a kid, the first time I did that, I tried to shoot Menendez. Okay, I'll see you, Brandon. Take care, man. Damn, no matching cards yet. Okay. Folding here. I'm not going to get a matching card. I always found it funny how scammers who are supposed to be the ones tricking you can't see that they're being played for a fool. Yeah, and the thing is, have you ever noticed, like, whenever scammers get called out for, like, their scams and stuff like that, and they realize that they're being trolled, the scammers, like, always say, like, you know, why are you doing this to me? Like, you know, why are you wasting my time? That's what the scammers say, when literally, they're literally trying to steal from people. Like, they get pissed that their time is being wasted when they're literally stealing from people. You're live streaming poker? Yeah, poker and Red Dead here. I haven't done one of those videos where I called up a scammer in a very long time. I guess I just haven't had time. But when I get time again, later this year, I do want to upload some more videos pissing off scammers I do. They were fun to do. Like, those were that. It was really sad what happened to Menendez's sister, but her death was more of Menendez's fault. Okay, let's try here. Wow, okay. Damn. Oh man, that 4. Damn. Yeah, and it's like I said, is that these scammers have no empathy for others. The fact that they can just steal from people like that and just no empathy, and they steal from old people too. People have worked their entire lives. You excited for Heat 2 of Leonardo DiCaprio? Hey, Daniel Rodriguez, I am, but I'm also a bit skeptical because I don't know if a sequel can be as good as the original. So why is Atreus in the God of War show chubby? I don't know that. That case was really sad, Flaming Eel, when that happened. Well, companies a lot of times change their names for tax reasons, Vertical. That they could be doing something like that for that. Folding, these cards are crap. Nothing here. You should do a Borat voice on scammers. Nah, because if I do the Borat voice, like most people know who Borat is, like they will, they'll be able to see through that right away and hang up. Whenever I piss off scammers, do you know why I don't tell them that I know it's a scam? I only tell them that at the very end of the video, that I know it's a scam. The reason that I spent on the phone with them for hours, the reason I do that, is because if I tell them I know it's a scam, they're going to hang up right away. If I play along and I act like I'm a victim, like I'm going to get scammed, like the scammer is going to be interested, and they're going to focus all their attention on me. And the longer I keep the scammer on the phone, the less time he has to scam other people. So that's why I would always drag out those calls. That's why I would try to make those calls as long as possible. I would try to really waste their time, because the longer they're talking to me, they're not scamming anyone else. It's kind of dumb, Alexander, when people do that. In my country, there are so many scams, mostly easy job, high salary trick, and posing police officers trick. What's that? People pretend to be cops and give you a ticket? Who ambushed the drug deal in Mafia 2, the fake cops? Oh, that was Falcone's people. Falcone's people were trying to get rid of the triads, and they saw that that Henry and Vito had gone in, and then they forced their way in while they were making that deal. It's go ahead, brother, or It's about an ex-anti-terrorist police turned criminal. Surprisingly good. So it's the main character's like a villain. Let me. I'll save this also because I'm interested in this TV show here. What new games am I looking forward to this year, excluding GTA 6? I'm looking forward to Ghost of Yotei Legends. I'm looking forward to Ace Combat 8. The new Modern Warfare game. Hopefully the new Modern Warfare game is good. No, I didn't get the chance to watch Borat 2. One thing that disappointed me is that there was no Azamat. I wish Azamat would have been in Borat 2. That's one of the reasons I guess I never went around to see it. I was hoping that Azamat would come back. Oh, yeah, 007 and Wolverine. Right. Yep, you're right, Andre. I'm sorry. I forgot. Okay, screw it. I'm gonna go all in here. Let's see if anyone does it here. I'm gonna try to get people to fold here. This one guy out. Another person out. He's going in. He's got to be confident with his hand. Oh, damn. Damn. Okay, I'm done here. It was cringe in GTA 5 when Packy and the crew were talking about all their past scores. No crew would ever do that. Yeah, you are right. They wouldn't do that. They would not talk about their past crimes. 100%. They're watching your stream? No, they're not. It was a random game that I just joined here. The chances of the poker players watching my stream is very little to none. Yeah, no, people aren't going to forget what happened, and the reviews will stay. I guess we will be wrapping up this stream, guys, here. I gotta still get something to eat. I'm a bit hungry.
Look at that. I ain't seen you in a dog's age.
I'm just gonna wrap up the stream because I'm a bit tired and hungry, David. Oh yeah, my ultimate beginner guide for Red Dead Online will help out a lot. Just finished your Scarface series, so good. Well, I'm gonna be doing Scarface again this year. It's the 20th anniversary, so we'll play it again. Etta Doyle, I will do next time. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope that you guys enjoyed the stream. Bye, Pat and chat, and let me know when you want to do Crime Boss because my Xbox Game Pass is expiring. But other than that, say goodnight to the bad guy. Okay, Visionary. I'll see you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone.